Okay, hello everyone. Um, I'm Mike Boston, coordinator of the EFET response to the trade affecting measures introduced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I will talk for about 15 minutes about the impact on energy trading resulted from the measures to stop the spread of the COVID-19 and about the standardization of exchange of transaction data. Questions at the end, please, or you can add it in the Q&A. I think you will have a few minutes for questions as well. At the end of my presentation, you will learn 6 areas where we can see the effect on energy trading due to the COVID-19 measures and companies' response to those trading environment alterations. And secondly, I will present 3 pillars where I will present EFET efforts on standardization, making trade easier, faster, more reliable, less prone to mistakes. Let's go with the first part, the impact on energy trading. Well, what happened? Uncertainty has increased. A report from several EU agencies was saying that valuation, solvency, credit, liquidity risks have increased all over the board. I have 6 points on this matter, ending with operations. You'll want to listen to that. Let's start with the first one, insolvency risks, which increased. This is a critical thing because, for example, a French ordinance from spring 2020 put a freeze on the capacity to sanction contractual breaches, kind of a super force majeure. Well, as you know, EFET has several master agreements and they include specific provisions on when and how insolvency takes place. The EFET legal team, and chapeau to Jan Hansman for doing such a great work with his team, they created an emergency legislation overview on insolvency-related measures, including a focus on the energy industry for, I think, 10 European countries. And they look at insolvency proceedings or contract enforceability, at payments, quite important, don't you think, and at collateralization of claims. But I think more on legal quirks and improvements, but useful for trading processes in the standardization part. Now, secondly, I will talk about the increased usage and dependency on digital due to the confinement measures. What companies are doing in general is that they are sending traders to work from home. Depending on the company, we have about 40%, 75% of traders who are working from home. They have the company laptops, the calls are recorded, and access to platforms is from their, to trading platform is from their laptop. Well, now most of the documentation is in the cloud, and which makes things easier, and trading platform help with some new protocols as well. However, I didn't hear anyone talking about specific ICT measures. It's nothing new here. However, be advised, the European Commission published recently a document called DORA, which is a proposal. DORA means Regulation on Digital Operation Resilience, which applies to financial firms and imposes several ICT measures. This is quite important because it modifies several important directives and regulations like MiFID, Solvency, Capital Requirements Directive, and others. Third, delays in European market integration due to COVID. And I will talk here only on recent developments. For example, ENTSO-E announced recently that the RR platform, that is replacement reserve platform, has been delayed because of the lockdown restrictions, which have restricted preparations for go live. Things like training the operators, testing of the local system, IT development, and so on. Now, number 4, and here I will talk a bit about compliance. Just a few words. So there is an extension of certain compliance deadlines. It's announced that the use of platforms for effective disclosure of inside information meaning on inside information platform IPs is delayed until after January 21, I think. Also, Acer extended the deadline for market participants to comply with the new validation rules. I think the same after January 2021. But not all is good. For example, the fifth guidance to REMIT implementation is totally unrealistic, cannot be expected for market participants to implement the guidance with new complicated compliance rules on short notice. It's just moving rules from the financial markets to energy markets without appropriate tailoring. So we have things like internal and insider list, we have inclusion of something like likelihood of significant price effect, whatever that means, publishing of intermediate steps about commissioning of new plants or recommissioning mothballed plants, many complicated things. And finally, what I was promising, it's about operations, cherry of the cake, if you want. How trading operations were affected by the recent lockdowns. Well, now we are a bit back to the situation that was in spring. On trading floors, we have skeleton crews with kind of a rotation system, but it's complicated because it's difficult to put people 2 meters from each other with masks. Doesn't really work. Transmission of shifts is done by phone to avoid contact. There is disinfection of work places between shifts. There are many problems on practicalities also. Then, for example, the cantinas are closed and people have to go out to eat. And with limited persons, for example, for people to go into an elevator, 2 or 3 people, imagine moving up to different floors, 1,000 people. It's logistically very difficult. Some companies demand employees to ask permission if they want to go to office. What is happening is also more trainings and generally more communication on compliance issues. On corporate traveling, actually, I've discussed and asked a lot. I heard from different companies, and I've discussed north, south, east, west, center. And I've heard from the beginning of the new year for corporate traveling to resume to never. Why? Because people got used with MS Teams, management. What I heard from one company was telling that management discovered that, well, people can work efficiently for home, so it's not that a worry as it was thought before. Also, people are more punctual getting to meetings. You don't have, for example, a late Thalys and you arrive late at the meeting. That would be some of the positive aspects. Now I'm going to the second part of my address, which is about standardization. And we do a lot of work on standardization. I would divide those in 3 areas and talk about them each. Let's start with contractual standardization. As you know, EFET initiated several master agreements. Well, for every change of documentation, relation, you had to send it by post. And the lockdown put a wrench in the postal system. So what do? What is happening is that my colleagues developed something called the e-notice agreement, electronic notice agreement. You deliver contractual notification by email. It's not an e-signature, not there yet. I understand. Just this morning they were telling me that this is a project that could start soon. So you can transition from one version to an EFET document to another via a system of online ratification. This is done through the EFET document ratification system, EDRS platform, or I'm sure many of you know it already, that was updated and allowed for EDRS to control and check match users' elections. The terms of the new version of the EFET document apply to future or existing but not yet settled trades. This helps a lot in dealing with innovation and parts agreeing on this. Also on the contractual standardization, there is the CPPA standardization project. I think you've heard about this. We are doing this in partnership with Resource. CPPA is Corporate Power Purchasing Agreement. I think you know it's already. Maybe some of my colleagues will talk about it. In short, you have the utility, the producer, the developer, and the bank in between. And finally, there is an update on one of the EFET specific master agreements to EFET certificate master agreement to reflect developments in European certificates markets, covering national GOs like the UK Renewable Energy Guarantees Origin, some Polish Green Blue Certificates of Origin, and others. The support certificate schemes like the Norwegian, Swedish electricity certificates, the Romanian guarantees of origin, the UK renewables obligation certificates. And I think they are covering biogas and hydrogen with the expansion of the guarantees of origin regime under RED 2. Secondly, and this is actually a very interesting development, is the standardization of exchange of transaction data, standardization of trades, in other words. This is done through ECM, which is electronic confirmation matching, and reporting, electronic regulatory reporting. This is actually not a new area, but more of an update, as it reuses some of the EFET existing processes. And you have a settlement matching service, ESM, which is a single global process for physical and financial settlement. It defines the message flow, which is the method of communication. It defines message content and structure, the data exchange, which is in the CPML format, which is a commodity products markup language. You know it, it's an industry standard that enables presentation of trades. Basically what you put into document for the representation of trades, the taxonomy, if you like. It was updated recently, I think in June 2020. And finally, matching criteria and rules, the processes used. Basically, you do not send to a counterparty, but to a matcher, which identifies what is missing between, let's say, between the invoice and the shadow invoice. What are the benefits for all this? I think first it's faster. Invoices netting reduces the likelihood of lost invoices. There is the same settlement process across all teams, which means better benchmarking across teams. There is less time for checking invoices. There's quicker and more reliable netting, which means less exposure, less collateral, increases volumes, less errors, more automatization, and increased frequency of billing. And I think my colleague Gavin will talk more about this in more detail. We talk about requirements and so on. And finally, and I think I should close to the end of the presentation. It's about the third area of standardization, which we do, and it's on market design. This is an ongoing process, continuous work, and we have it on integrated European wholesale power and gas markets in different time frame to have more efficient, more competitive markets on European level, and also on market supervision. We aim for a level playing field regulation when supervision is necessary, not regulation for the sake of regulation. And I think I'm closing to the end of my presentation. Those were the two parts that I wanted to talk. It was a pleasure to speak in front of you. I hope you learned something useful. To recall, I talk about 6 points where I think energy trading is affected: insolvency risks, on digital, on delays in European market integration, compliance changes, good and bad, and finally on operations. And about the 3 areas where EFET works for standardization, for easier, faster, more reliable trading, contractual, exchange of transaction data, and on market design. Let me finish by saying that that I hope all here will have a fruitful conference at the Energy Week, and the information learned here and contacts made here will grow us to make us better in our jobs. Salute. I will check now the Q&A. Are you planning to make any updates to the EFET contract due to COVID? Yes, there were actually some updates to the EFET contract due to COVID, and I mentioned the certificates one that was updated, and it was done to cover more guarantees of origin and other types of contract. There will be more updates on standardization of exchange data, but I think this is not really related to master agreements. However, to reply to your question, yes, there was an update to the EFET contract. Any more questions? I'm looking both at the chat and the question and answer. If no, then I will leave you for the next session, free for discussion on various topics. Thank you and salute.